Okay. First of all, thanks for being here to see our project together. My name is Arantxa Pinillas. During the past 16 years, I have been working for large companies such as DuPont, moving later on to IFF, International Flavors and Fragrances. During the past 10 years, basically working in treasury function. So this is a little bit of introduction of myself. Basically, from IFF point of view, our expansive global network can serve our customers around the world, considering the increased regulatory environment that is prevalent nowadays. We can offer our customers as well whatever kind of solution that they need around the world, independently where they are located. And practically, approximately 70% of our sales came out from North America. Why IFF choose a payment factory solution? Well, IFF and DuPont Nutrition Biosciences came together in 2021, February, if I recap well. So as you can imagine, IFF had their own legacy ERP systems. As well, DuPont Nutrition Biosciences had their own legacy ERP systems. Also, there were M&A system activities. So we need just to consider and have in mind any kind of systems journey plan, which practically was combine our ERPs, build our treasury in-house cash solution, and the consecutive step, which will be central finance. These are the vision and guiding principles that IFF consider for this journey together with Nosarius. Basically, we want the single source of financial truth for IFF systems, and these are the main 8 principles that IFF consider to do that. I will not go into detail on each of them, but one set of global processes, a standard solution and best practices, no customizations or having the minor ones, get the data right, make decisions at pace and stick to them, maintain a people-centered perspective, hit the project timeline, and minimize disruptions. From business case, the primary focus is the tactical goals. So what is measured, no? What we can measure. And basically here, we are focusing on getting reduction on cash flows, getting reduction as well on gross FX exposures, reduction on banking partners, reduction on bank accounts. We know that we need to consider that there are some fundamentals that are not very, let's say, simple to measure, but they are for sure critical piece to get successful operations. The aim of IFF is just, in a strategic point of view, be best in class performance. From project timeline, IFF ran in an aggressive timeline. We kick off the project in the middle of 2021. The design and the 2 phases took place the second half of 2021, early 2022, and we were live 1st April this year. So as of now, we are up and running, and definitely with the support of Nosarius, we are so far so good. So, so now passing to you, Stefan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Arantxa.
Thank you.
So Arantxa is taking us through kind of the IFF business and so to speak, the reasons for running this project. Since we are in an SAP conference, we need to dig a bit down to kind of components and what was the scope. So in chronological order, this is what has been in scope, starting from the left, emptying accounts payable, due items will be paid, There we are using, of course, the standard payment program everybody knows. An RFC connection, in this case using iDocs, into APM. APM sorts, determines the type, makes sure that it's validated and converted into the correct format. Of course, also in scope, in-house cash to cater for intercompany transactions, also in relation to Probo transactions to cater for the intercompany there. And of course, bank account management to hold the master data of all the internal and external accounts. BCM as a layer to control the transactions going in and out and making sure that you at all times have full overview of what is sent and what is received from the bank. In this case, there is no MBC, unfortunately. Maybe it will come. We don't know. So we have used old-fashioned PO and connected to a Swift Service Bureau. And the scope was five banks, around 20 countries. Yeah. The new thing is the APM, and that's what I'm going to dig a bit deeper into. So what is it? I've tried to kind of put it on a bit more high level. APM is extremely advanced. There is a lot of flexibility in the tool. But this is how we see it from Nasarius and IFF side. This is kind of the core of it. So you can receive files in different formats. The tool can interpret the files. The tool can sort the files. You can use different connections, RC connection, old-fashioned iDoc coming into the system. And then, of course, as an embedded part of APM, MBC is offered, even though that is usually used for external bank to connect to external banks. In APM, you can actually utilize MBC and connect XML files directly. Non-SAP systems, that has not been the scope of IFF yet, but that is of course an option, and then there can be even flat files to take in. APM is all about kind of rule sets and treating the data in a proper way to make sure that this is flowing through the system as automated as possible. As you can see here, I just mentioned kind of three main types. So if an intercompany payment comes into the system, it sends it directly off to in-house cash. In-house cash will then, of course, clear between the two internal accounts. For a Probo payment, 3 processes are involved. So you will cater for the intercompany part in the bank to post between the two entities that holds that intercompany. It will automatically generate the general ledger posting for the external payment, meaning that there is no F111 anymore, or sorting and so on. All of that is handled automatically. And then, of course, the format that you choose, whether that is going to be PAIN going forward, or whether it's going to be JSON and APIs and so on, that we don't know. But for now, it's XML that counts. And then, of course, and this is what makes it. I mean, I have been working with payment factories since the 90s, the end of the 90s, and it's actually the last part here that makes it, a real payment factory too, because it can take the P&O in different ways and route it through directly to the bank. You have different options whether you want to have a direct route. If you want that, then you need to pre-tune the file in the source system to make sure that that the bank can actually receive it. You can also remap the file, but the whole point is that a P&O payment, which is a payment in the name of where the owner of the external bank account is lying with the entity in the beginning of the process. The whole point is that with this, we don't need to bend the system anymore. We have done that. There were kind of 2 ways of doing it. Either you send it out from the source system and directly to the bank, but then you don't have a payment factory, so you're not gathering. Or we have also done many solutions where you force it through the internal bank, and you customize and do what do you call it, coding, non-standard coding to kill the postings and the updates of the internal accounts. But then at least you can update the old-fashioned kind of payment request tables we used and F111 and so on. And I think that is done with many clients. But now with APM, that's over. Now this tool can actually do it. And that's why, oh, no, it's this. So that's why I have mentioned RPA. I mean, RPA has been on the agenda for a couple of 2-3 years now, where that has been discussed. And I see the APM as a kind of RPA tool for payment transactions. You have taken away most of the manual handling. You can even schedule the F110 to empty accounts payable, so then you have a full-blown automatic solution. And then, based on the rule set and everything you put up into APM, all of this is automated. You don't need to touch it anymore. It's the rule set that decides how this will go through the process. And everybody that has been dealing with RPAs knows that RPAs are very good, but when it fails, it becomes very difficult. And I think SAP actually have solved that in a very good way, because each and every step of the transaction is logged. You can see where you are. If it fails, you will see where it fails, and most likely you will also see why it fails. Okay. And that makes it a kind of true RPA, because sometimes we put up automatic processes, and then it goes in 99% of the cases, but this 0.1%, you spend a shitload of time on to make sure that you can find the error. In this case, you actually have a good overview. Yes? So, design considerations. We have talked a lot about kind of the inbound part, meaning that how do you gather the data? Is it IDOCs? Is it XML? Should it be an overpopulated XML, and then you lie the mapping in the APM? All of these design considerations you should take up front. I think it's very important that when you do the design, you make sure that these things are discussed, and there are pros and cons for taking in IDOCs versus XML. So that is one of the areas where you need to focus. Another one, like we discussed before, the outbound. And the outbound, yeah, for IFF it was very clear. Yeah. It is the pain messages, it's the XML. Going forward, maybe it's APIs and JSON, I don't know. When it comes to enhancement and validations, how should I say it? It's a very flexible solution, but I think flexibility comes with also complexity. So you are flexible of doing whatever check you want. You can check a single field. You can enhance the formats. You can check with surrounding systems and so on. And I must say I'm very happy when we did this, that we had direct access to Waldorf to discuss kind of the best practice solution in this space, because it takes a bit of time to actually get it under the skin or get the knowledge, because of the fact that you have so many different ways of actually doing it. So I think that is one of the things that, I mean, we have done a couple of projects over the last 1.5, 2 years, and we are now kind of seeing a best practice building up, but also getting the input of doing that from SAP directly have helped us through this, and I think we would probably use a bit more time if it wasn't for SAP helping us. So that's very good. Forwarding scenarios. I think forwarding scenarios is mostly kind of you need to decide. I mean, if you build up APM from an already existing setup, where you have spent a lot of time invested in XML formats, in the bank formats, yeah, maybe you want to utilize those. Then you can use the forward scenario. And the forward scenario is basically a routing engine. So you have a rule set, and then you just forward the file. So it's pre-queued in the inbound, and you don't do anything with it, except for the fact that, of course, APM will log the different steps again, so you have kind of a full overview also of the forwarding scenario used, which is related to PNOs. Approval flows, we discussed it a lot.
Yeah.
And if you want a straight-through processing setup, then you need to discuss whether you want to embed a lot of approvals in the end of the process. Maybe you should do that in the beginning of the process instead of the end of the process. So of course, whatever you put on of approval steps will stop the straight-through processing. So yeah, we have managed to put the approvals into the system and locked it when it's actually paid from the source. So that means that this functionality is actually not used in IFF at the moment. I think it will come because we have a phase 2, where the scope is twice as big or maybe 3 times as big. And then I think there will be a need. And again, flexibility is there. So maybe you should do it on amount or a certain bank or a certain currency. But don't start with a huge approval flow setup in a payment factory. I don't recommend that. Do it. Make sure that your processes are lean and that due items, when they are lying in the accounts payable, that they actually are approved. Because if not, you will just spend a lot of time, and then the kind of closeness to the transaction is not with the central unit. So, learnings from the project. I think we used quite some time on making sure that we had the scope. We made quite a detailed design document, and it's recommendable to use a bit more on design before you start building. I don't recommend to do APM and do trial and error setup. It's better to chew it to make sure that you have the design before you start. Bank testing, maybe you and Hansha want to say
bank
something.
testing, I only can say don't underestimate this one. Because something that initially could appear like a straight-through process within the banks is not. Each bank has their different schemas for getting tested. The payment files, they have different characteristics based on regions. So don't underestimate that one, because it was important, really important at the end. Yeah.
Then we have kind of the discussion again. Should it be iDocs? Should it be XML? Again, it's when we did the decision, I think it was based on the fact that we were, with these company codes in scope, we were starting from scratch. There was no history or anything. I think if you have a history, then you should utilize probably what you have. I think going forward we will have both.
Yeah.
So then it will be both iDocs and XML. The business drivers. Projects like this can easily drown in technicalities and details and banks that are not doing their job and systems that needs updates and OSS messages and you name it. So sometimes we tend to forget or we lose track on what are the goals, why are we doing this? And I think that is very important and a learning that we just need to make sure that we have the focus, because it needs to be future-proof, it needs to be scalable, we need to build on it going forward. The scope we have had with IFF is, I don't know, percentage-wise, not that high. It's what's coming that will really test out.
Yeah.
Even though we have quite a number of transactions and banks and countries, It is really the scope going forward that will really test this out. I'm not concerned. I think it's okay. It was quite a challenge, and with the help from SAP, it's of course very good that we now have the experience, have gained the experience. I think scaling this up now is going to be fairly okay. The last part is the infrastructure, and as you could see from the drawing from Arantxa, when you have a merge like that, you have usually different setups and different systems and different sources and so on. Don't underestimate when you need to connect several kind of instances to one instance, especially if you have it in different locations. Then it's time consuming and can easily kind of delay.
We were not an easy one, I know it.
No, exactly. So that was pretty hard. I forgot to mention a couple of things. I just want to take us back to this one. When I talked about kind of the straight through, there are two elements there that I didn't mention, and I actually forgot. It of course updates cash management and the cash management position automatically. You will even see it in your process flow that the cash management memo record is updated. The second part, which we have discussed also with IFF, it's not embedded yet, and many other clients, is of course the fact that you embed an automatic sanction filtering of all the transactions. And that means, of course, if you scope it so that you will only accept payments going through the APM, so you have a true payment factory for all transactions, and that means that you will also make sure that you can do sanction screening on all transactions at the same time. I think that was it from our side. I just want to finalize with a comment. The change from in-house cash to in-house banking, where in-house banking is embedded in APM, I think that will come, and I think many corporates will look into that. Yeah. It's an embedded part. It gives you more flexibility. It gives you an easier setup, and that to me is just the future. Last but not least, should you have a need for much more detail in the tables and how this is working and so on, there are several consultants at our stand that can help you with details that has been embedded in or involved in the projects we have had. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have a set of questions now from yeah, so let's start with the first one. IDOC versus XML in the learning slide. It is for inbound into APM.
Yes. So the discussion here is basically, are you starting from scratch, or are you utilizing something you have from before? I mean, why do you invest in setting up new IDOCs or overpopulated IDOCs just to streamline it if you already have pre-queued what you have towards the bank? So I think it's really a matter of deciding how to do it. And if you start from scratch here, then you either do an overpopulated XML or you do an IDOC that contains all the information.
Good. The next question, why BCM is not used for approval process of power attorney?
BCM? Approval of payments.
Approval process of power attorney.
Yeah. BCM is not used for approval because IFF have validated the processes before, meaning that the items that are coming from accounts payable from the surrounding systems are already approved. Yeah. So the payments are just flowing through completely automatically without anybody touching it.
Good. And so then the question is, what did you do for sanction screening? What source for sanction counterparty? And yeah, please tell us a bit more about that.
We haven't come that far, so we haven't done the sanction screening yet. It's part of the next stage.
The next stage.
So will be SAP for the sanction screening?
Yes.
We have a solution for that. So we will watch you guys.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Well, it was a bit of pressure, that's fine. Then another question, what key benefits does APM offer which is not included in SAP in-house cache?
As I mentioned, I can take it back. I think there are two main things. This flow, this Pinot flow, that is not part of an in-house cache solution. I know very many are using it, but then they are bending in-house cache and taking away the internal postings and all of that to just route it through. In this case, it's a clear flow and kind of one of the part or one type that you can put through here without bending. So this is standard. So that is very different from the earlier days where we used in-house cache and F111.
Yes, so actually we had that one of microforums was the future of APM plus in-house bank. So get to the SAP stand to find out more, because that's where we are going. And also, yeah, to you guys. So I think that's it on the area of questions. So thank you so much for being here and for showing us the APM success story. And we wish you best of luck for all the enhancements and your journey going forward.
No,
yeah?
sure. With Nazaris, we will be fine, I'm sure. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.